Dude looks like a lady. Hey, welcome to The Whole Truth, where I sing old Aerosmith songs really badly. Welcome to The Whole Truth, where I'm taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, where we are not skipping anything. And today is proof of that, because if you watched yesterday's video, or if you've come into this channel and you saw Deuteronomy chapter 22, and you said, well, where was verse 5? You went through the text, but you didn't do anything with verse 5. Well, I didn't do anything with verse 5 because we're going to deal with this topic on its own. We're going to deal with Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 5 all by itself. Why are we dealing with this one verse all by itself? Because it's a pretty big topic in our world today. And I want to deal kindly. I want to be kind, and I want to be loving in the true sense of love. And that is this. I want to speak the truth in love. And the truth is that I'm on a platform right now. You are watching this on Facebook or on YouTube or even on my website. I'm on a platform that supports a lifestyle that God doesn't support. And that's the part we have to understand, is if God doesn't want this, if this is not the way that God wants it, then do we want it this way? Do you really want to do something? If God really is God, and I believe that He is, do you? Then don't you believe that we should want to do things God's way? Now, unfortunately, when it comes to this topic, the topic of cross-dressing, the topic of transgenderism, the topic of pretty much the kind of the spectrum of LGBTQ and all of those things that go along with it. If God doesn't want that, do you? And you might say right now, yes, I do. And you might be one of these people who would say to me something like this. You see, if God doesn't want this, then I don't know that I want to be around Him. Well, friends, if He's really God, and I believe that He is, and I hope you believe that He is, then are you sure you want to set it up to say, like, if God doesn't do it my way, then I have to see God as wrong and I don't want to be around God? Or another thing that we see today is to deny things like this. Come up with ways around it. Explain it in a different way, or, explain it away in some way to say, oh, we don't have to believe that, or we don't have to follow that for this reason or that reason. Are you sure if God is telling you this is what I want or this is what I don't want? Are you sure that you want to walk away from that or turn away from that or ignore that? Or do you want to do things the way that God has given them to you? Well, let's talk pretty straightforward today. It's going to be a short passage, and I'm just going to talk through it, and I hope to make some sense of it for you. And I hope that you'll hear my heart in it, that I'm not trying to be unkind or unloving. I'm actually trying to be as loving as I can be. The true sense of love is to speak the truth to someone, to tell the truth to someone. And so I want to do that in as loving of a way as I can, but I also can't hide the truth from you because I'm on a platform that doesn't like it, or I know that I'm going to be facing a crowd of people that are going to be upset with me for saying such straightforward things. Okay, this is Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 5. A woman shall not wear anything that pertains to a man, nor shall a man put on a woman's garments, for all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your God. That's a pretty straightforward passage. A woman should not put on clothes that pertain to a man, and a man should not put on clothes that pertain to a woman. Now, let's be clear for a moment. All of these scriptures that we're reading in Deuteronomy 22 are simple and practical things. And you could use that to explain this away and go, oh, no, wait a second, Justin, this was an Old Testament law. This was, if you look, there's all about like mixing garments, like, don't put wool and cotton together, and there's don't put an ox and donkey together to plow the field, and all of those things. I ended yesterday's video. Go check me on this. I ended yesterday's video, and what I said at the end of yesterday's video was this, that these were rules of simplicity to say simply do that which is right. And anybody can flip this around, and you can go to the other end of this spectrum and try to be so extra righteous that you actually end up sinning in the other direction. So let's start there. Some have used passages like this in the religious world, especially if you go back in time just a little bit, even just, a couple of decades ago. Go back 20 years and you could still find it. It'd be pretty hard to find today. Maybe you can find a few, but it'd be difficult today to find some that would say for a woman to wear pants, that would be a garment that pertains to a man. Well, that's foolishness. Like, there was a time when both a man and a woman in the world wore long garments that were maybe a little more flowy and a little more open. We see in the Bible that a man would wear a tunic or a robe. Well, we would look at that today. If you saw me walking around today in a tunic, you'd be like, he's in a dress. Well, it's not a dress, it would be a tunic. And if I was walking around with a tunic with a robe over top of that, you'd be like, it might look like, oh, he's dressing like a Bible character or something of that nature. But if you didn't think Bible, if you didn't have that in your mind, if I wasn't watching The Chosen, then what am I going to say? Oh, well, that looks like a dress, right? In the same way, women have pants today that are women's pants, and we know that they're women's pants. They look like a woman's pants. There was a guy one time at church a couple of decades ago. I was at church and there was this old man who was just insistent that my wife was doing wrong because my wife was wearing pants. And he just would not let up. He would not get off my back about it. He was always coming to me about it. He wanted me to tell her, as her husband, she could not wear those pants anymore, or especially not wear them to church, because that was wrong. And so I told him, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a deal with you. And I said, so you're telling me all pants are wrong for women all the time? And he said, yes, women should not wear pants. And he pointed to the scripture and said, it's an abomination to the Lord for a woman to wear anything that pertaineth to a man. And I said, okay, great, I'll agree with you. So then all pants, I will do this. I'll do exactly what you're asking. I will insist that my wife wear a dress all the time and never wear pants if you'll do one thing for me. I need you to go to Walmart. We'll go together. I need you to go into the women's department, so where they sell women's clothing, and I want you to buy pants, your pants, from the women's department. And then I want you to wear those pants from the women's department into church next Sunday, because all pants are for men, so it shouldn't matter that those are in the women's department. He got very huffy and didn't like that because he didn't want to wear women's pants. And so then we can tell there is a difference between a man's pants and women's pants. And so just because they're covering one leg at a time or covering both legs at once, that's not what we mean. Let's keep this simple. You can tell a difference between a man's clothes and a woman's clothes. Now let's bring this up a little more current to what we're dealing with today, especially in this LGBTQ agenda that we see. You even see stores today that are blending clothing. By the way, do you notice that those who are blending clothing, Target, do you notice that those who are blending clothing, have you noticed that they start with the children? Is that not concerning to anyone else? That, they didn't take the adult men and the adult women and put their clothes together and tell us to figure out which ones were guys and which ones were girls. But in the kids department, they're getting rid of the boy section and the girl section. Now, you mark my words, that's happening. You're already seeing the starts of it, and they're going to continue on. And Walmart we've got a local Walmart that is remodeled, and they've done the same thing. They've gotten rid of it. Still there a little bit, but they've gotten rid of all the signage, and you kind of get in this middle portion where I look at it and go, I can't tell. I don't know. Are they trying to sell that as a women's stuff, or is that even the mannequin? Sometimes I'm like, is that supposed to be a woman, or is that supposed to be a man? Is that supposed to be a boy or a girl? But they always tend to start in the children's department, and they blend the two of them, and they go, oh, you can't tell. But the truth of the matter is that you get certain colors and certain styles, and you go, oh, that looks like a woman's article of clothing. Now, you could come at me and you'd go, Justin, back in the days of kings and queens, kings used to wear heels to make themselves taller. I've heard this argument. Okay, I hear that. And in that time, that's what a king wore, and everybody knew that, so it wasn't a woman's garment. That's just like the whole pants thing, to say all pants all the time are always. I'm telling you that you can absolutely tell. Take away all the facade, take away all your supposed blinders. Oh, I don't see gender. Take away all of that. Did you like that, by the way? That's my. If you take away all of that, you can look at it and go, that person looks like a woman, or that person looks like a man. You see the difference. You can tell the difference. Now, you can try to lie to yourself and say that you don't see a difference. Now, you might look at me and go, Justin, are you saying that all pink is for girls? No, I have a pink shirt. Pink is a color, but there's never been a time. I have a pink shirt. I've got a friend of mine whose son is sick with cancer, and his shirt, we've got some like team shirts for him. I don't think it'd be wrong for me to say that, right? Like Team Benji, we have some Team Benji shirts. I've even worn it here on this channel, and it's a pink shirt. I guarantee you, I've never put that shirt on and had somebody go, oh, he's trying to look like a woman. Never. No, nobody's ever said that, because that shirt doesn't look like a woman's shirt. It's a t-shirt that's pink. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, take all the agenda out of it and just say the simplicity of it. Does that pertain to a woman, or does that pertain to a man? You know, there are some times that some things don't pertain to a woman or a man, by the way. My parents love to match. You ever have parents do that? You ever do the matching the matching clothing stuff, you know, like get pictures or whatever? My parents have jackets, they have motorcycles, and they have jackets and shirts that match. They got the same one. There's no sin there, because my mom is not trying to dress like a man. My dad is not trying to dress like a woman. Nobody is looking at them and confused at their gender. But you can't go anywhere today, at least not where I am. You can't hardly go anywhere without seeing somebody that is dressing like the opposite gender. You have boys dressing like girls, and you have girls dressing like boys, and they're confusing that. And what did the Lord say about all of that? He said, that's an abomination. Now, that word has been maligned over the years, because we've had some that have abused it from the religious side, sort of like what I described early in this video. But you have the other end of that, which is, you've had that abuse that's happened, which has said, like, you know, that's an abomination to the Lord. Like somehow that's like extra. That's like extra. Friends, all sin is sin. All sin is sin. What makes this an abomination is that you are fighting against what God naturally and simply made. You know, at the end of the day, you can tell the difference between a male lion and a female lion. You can come to me all day long with all your examples of hermaphrodite animals, and you can come to me with animals that'll do homosexual things, and I look at you and go, those animals are animals. But you know, you can still tell the difference between a female kangaroo and a male kangaroo. You'll go, one's got a pouch. All the way back in the beginning, God created Adam and he created Eve. He only created one of each. Anything besides one male and one female is an abomination. Why? Because God created. Do you get it? Like the order that God made of things. The simplicity to do what is right, to coin from our last video. The simplicity of what God made is this. There's a male and a female. Adam was going through and naming the animals. Do you realize that Adam was a smart man? I believe that he was the smartest man to ever be on earth. He's like from the Matrix. He's got God's knowledge downloaded into his brain. God made him as a man with intelligence. He was not made as a baby and grew. He was made as a man. I said that recently, and some kid pointed out to me. I can't remember. I say some kid. A friend of one of my sons pointed out and said, so Adam and Eve didn't have a belly button because they didn't have an umbilical cord, so they had no belly button. I thought that was a cool thing to point out. God made man and woman. He did not make a baby. He makes a man. He makes Adam. And Adam is naming the animals. And can you just imagine as Adam gets up to the lion, grabs the mane of that lion. There's a male lion. He looks at this female lion. There's no mane. And he can tell that the male lion walks just a little ahead of the female lion to protect and to guard, because he's leading. And Adam can see this. And they're walking together. And here's Adam looking at this male lion, this female lion. He sees there's one and there's another. They're made for each other. And he looks and he sees there's nobody made for him. Can you imagine as the kangaroos come around the corner and Adam walks up? Can you imagine as Adam in his scientific and smart mind begins to look at these kangaroos and go, what an interesting creature. And he puts his hand in the pouch of the female, and he realizes this one is for their offspring. This pouch is for their offspring, and there's a male and there's a female, but those aren't for him. They're not shaped like him. They don't look like him. You know what God did was he took Adam and he put him to sleep, and then he takes a rib from his side, he makes a female, and Adam wakes up. He wakes Adam up, and then the Lord, it's like a like a dad walking his daughter, the bride, down the aisle, and the groom is waiting at the altar. There's Adam, awakened from his sleep, and after he's named all these other animals and realized, that's beautiful, that's glorious, that's powerful, but that's not mine, that's not flesh of my flesh, that's not bone of my, it's not like I am. And he looks, and here comes God with Eve. And Adam says this most poetic thing. He says, now that's bone of my bone. Now that's flesh of my flesh. And he says this poetic line. He says, for this reason, it's prophetic. He says, for this reason. What reason? Adam just found his soulmate, and it's a woman. She's his helper. And he says, that's flesh of my flesh. That's bone of my bone. And then he says this, for this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother, cleave to his wife. You see, God created something beautiful. And when you deviate from that, that's an abomination. Because you're looking at God's wonderful creation. He made man and woman to go together. I had someone recently say to me, how do you know God made man and woman to go together? See how their voice sounds in my head when they say it? Like, how do you know? They sound like the little cartoon. How do you know God made man and woman to be together? Because it's obvious, y'all. Like, the parts fit. They can have babies. You know, if you take something LGBTQ to its furthest end, what you find out is that you're going to run out of offspring. I mean, if somebody is truly saying, like, I am not attracted to the opposite sex, then the only way for that person to procreate is to have some sort of artificial insemination or some sort of scientific thing to try to get in the way, or they have to be non-monogamous and they have to be with somebody of the opposite gender, because no matter how much you try, two males cannot have offspring. Two females cannot have offspring. You can take all the hormones you want. You can have all the surgeries you want to have. You can dress the way you want to dress. And so you can be a woman and begin to call yourself a man. You can now identify as a man. You can change your pronouns. You can change your shirt. You can change your clothes. You can change your hair. You can change all of those things. But you will never change the fact that you are not built to create life with another woman. It won't work. You can tell me that I have to call you he, him all you want. If you are with a female partner, you and that female cannot procreate. Now, you end up in these weird scenarios today where you have a female that thinks she's a male, so now she's he, and then you end up with a male that thinks he's a female, and so now he is she. I have met this in person. I've met with a young man who told me that he was now a female. And as we began to talk, you know what I found out? Well, he had been dating a girl who transitioned to a male, and these were his words to me. He said, I'm not gay. So he decided to transition to a female so that his female to male counterpart now would be with him, a male to female counterpart. That way he wouldn't be gay. And you say, Justin, that's convoluted. I didn't make it up. I didn't do that. Like, that wasn't me. I look at that and go, the Bible says that that's an abomination. Why is that an abomination? Because God created male and female. Can I give you the best news today? God created you the way that you were meant to be. Did you let that sink in for a moment? Somebody somewhere is going to call this hate speech. Is it hate speech to accept that God made you special as who you are? God made you unique as who you are. And when you hear that, you're in a culture that goes, you might go, well, okay, see, so if I'm talking for myself, if I feel like a female, then I can identify as a female. No, God made me who I am. That wasn't assigned at birth. Y'all, that was assigned by the Creator. You see, here comes this idea again that like a baby's not a baby inside of mom, and it's a fetus. Y'all, it's a baby. My daughter is pregnant. Tomorrow, when I'm filming this, tomorrow is Mother's Day. I will celebrate with my daughter her first Mother's Day, even though she doesn't physically have the baby in her arms. She does physically have the baby in her belly. Why is she a mom? Because that is life. And that baby's gender was assigned by God and is already in the womb. The life that is created is not assigned a gender by a doctor or by a birth certificate. Friend, you are assigned a gender by God. And all the doctor is saying is this is the gender that is revealed. And there's a pretty simple formula to know whether it's a male or a female. You can tell. I heard somebody say one time, they said, well, that's disgusting because really to name someone male or female, you're just asking them about their private parts. They didn't say private parts. I'm trying to be polite. They said, you're just asking them about their private parts. Well, no, you're not. There's more to it than private parts, you all. Like, you can tell. You can look at a facial structure. You can look at the way that someone stands. You can look at the way that even their mannerisms, their strength. We can see the difference. We can see the difference in their chromosomes. We can see the difference. It is possible to tell the difference between a male and a female. And that's what God was saying. In the middle of these other laws of just keep it simple, God gives this law and says a woman shouldn't wear anything that pertains to a man, and a man shouldn't wear anything that pertains to a woman. And the reason God made that law was for what we're seeing right now today in 2024, when there's all of this confusion about the simplest thing. Even from birth, even a child can understand the difference between a boy and a girl. It doesn't take them long to put together that there's a difference between boys and girls, and that's not just an assignment. That's just part of who we are. And so my encouragement to you today is to say, would you accept that God made you, and the way that he made you, the way that you came out of your mother's womb, that's who you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to try to be somebody else, whether by dress or hormones or declaration. You are not supposed to try to be somebody else. God made you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Be that. I want to tell one more quick story, and that is somebody got very upset with me recently. They found out that I was not for the LGBTQ agenda. Now, I want to be clear. I'm all for people. I'm all for people finding Jesus and repenting of their sins, turning away from their sin in their old life and coming unto Jesus and coming unto new life. And they interpreted my stance to say, oh, well, I somehow hate. They kept calling me hateful. And they wrote it to me in emails. And they said how hateful I was. They didn't realize that I was spreading so much hate because I say that this is the point of what I would say. If you're a transgender person, you need to go back to what you once were. And you might say, Justin, I have taken hormones. I have done things with chemicals or even in surgeries. Like, I have physically done things. Yeah, well, that's true. You need to repent and go back to what God made you to be, because you're fearfully and wonderfully made like him. Can I ask you this question? You'll be able to put things together for yourself. Can I ask you this question? I've got a friend who's missing a thumb, got chopped off, doesn't have a thumb. Is he no longer a male because he doesn't have a thumb? I have another friend, female. She wears an eye patch because she lost an eye. Now, one guy's lost his thumb. Is he still a male? I know a woman who has lost her eye. She has an eye patch. Is she no longer a female? Well, I know of another situation, a woman who had breast cancer and she had to have a double mastectomy. Is she no longer a female because she had a double mastectomy? No, she's still a female. Regardless of what you have done to your body, regardless of what chemicals you've taken, and regardless of what you have put down on some paper to change pronouns, God made you who you are, and that's who you should be. And you shouldn't try to be something else. You should see the beauty in who you are and what God created. Even if you've taken steps and measures to try to do the opposite, you should come back to the Lord, and your way of repenting and coming back to the Lord is to accept that God made you who you are. That's who you should be. You don't want to be an abomination. You don't want to step outside of his will. Knowing that he made you as you are and he made you who you should be, then you should find glory in him to say he must have a plan for me in all of this. And that in this tapestry of the world, you are a thread that he has woven in there, and there is a plan for you. Well, I hope that you've heard my heart in this video, and I hope if anything else, you'll hear this, that God made you who you are, and you can always come back to him. No matter how far you've gone, you can always come back to him. I hope I'll see you tomorrow as we get further into Deuteronomy chapter 22. I'll see you then.